You think you're building competence. You think you're standing up for yourself. You think you're finally learning how to set boundaries and demand respect. But here's what's really happening. You're feeding something older, something deeper, something you didn't create and can't see. You're not building strength. You're reinforcing a prison your mind built the first time someone told you that you weren't enough. And the bars of that prison are made entirely of fear. Let me show you exactly where this plays out. You're at work. Someone questions your decision in front of the team. It's not aggressive. It's casual. Almost friendly. But something tightens in your chest. You don't just respond. You over-explain. You defend. You list your reasons like you're on trial. And when it's over, you feel like you won. But you didn't. You just showed everyone in that room that your authority is negotiable. You handed them the frame. You accepted their right to evaluate you. And you did it because your ego couldn't handle the discomfort of being questioned without reacting. Or this. You're talking to a woman you're interested in. She teases you. It's light, playful, but you feel the sting, so you tease back harder. You try to flip it. You try to regain control. And she smiles. But the dynamic shifted. You're no longer calm. You're managing her perception of you. You're performing. And she can feel it, because the moment you needed to prove you weren't affected, you proved the opposite. Your ego required her to see you a certain way, and that need gave her all the power. Or here, you post something online, a thought, an opinion, a photo, and you check back. Once, twice, 10 times. You watch the numbers, you read the comments, and if someone disagrees, you feel it. You want to respond, you want to correct them, you want to defend your position, not because you care about the truth, but because your ego registered their disagreement as a threat, and now you need to neutralize it. You need to win. You need to be seen as right, and that need just made you a slave to strangers' attention. Here's what connects all three. You think the issue is external. You think the problem is the person questioning you, the woman testing you, or the stranger disagreeing with you. But it's not. The problem is internal. The problem is that your sense of self is still being held hostage by something Jung spent his entire career trying to help people see. Your ego is not protecting you, it's controlling you. And it's controlling you because underneath all that confidence, all that ambition, all that self-improvement, there's a fear you've never faced. The fear that if you stop performing, stop proving, stop defending, you'll disappear. You'll be nothing. And your ego would rather exhaust you than let you feel that. Jung called this the shadow, but most people misunderstand what that means. They think the shadow is the dark parts of you, the anger, the jealousy, the cruelty, and those are in there. But the shadow isn't just what you hide, it's what you refuse to see. And one of the things most men refuse to see is this: your ego is not your ally. It's a defense system built by a child who was terrified of being rejected, ignored, or abandoned. And every time you react to prove your worth, every time you defend your image, every time you need someone to see you a certain way, that child is still running the show. You were trained for this. You were raised in a world that taught you that your value is conditional, that you have to earn love, earn respect, earn attention. And you internalized that. You turned it into a belief system. And now, decades later, you're still performing, still auditioning, still trying to prove that you deserve to be here. And your ego is the enforcer of that belief. It's the part of you that says, if they don't respect you, fight for it. If they don't see your value, show them. If they question you, defend yourself. And every time you obey that voice, you reinforce the very fear that created it. Most of you won't finish this video. You'll feel uncomfortable. You'll feel exposed. And your ego will tell you that this doesn't apply to you, that you've already figured this out, that you're past this, and you'll leave. But if you're still here, it's because some part of you knows I'm right. And that part of you is tired of being controlled. So put your phone face down, turn off distractions, and listen, because in the next few minutes I'm going to show you 7 psychological reversals that will change the way you see power control, and respect. And if you apply even one of them, you'll stop being a reactor and start being a strategist. If this hit you, write "I am the strategist" once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. Here's the first shift. You think defending yourself shows strength. It doesn't. It shows that you accepted their frame of reference. Every time someone questions you and you feel the need to explain, you just told them their opinion of you matters. You gave them authority over your reality, and now you're in their court. You're playing their game. You're letting them set the rules. And no matter how good your explanation is, you have already lost. Jung understood this. He said the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's what he didn't say out loud. Most people let the other person determine the nature of that reaction. They let someone else's doubt, judgment, or criticism dictate their emotional state. And once you do that, you're not in control. They are. Let me make this concrete. Someone at work questions your approach. You have two options. Option 1. You explain, you list your reasoning, you justify your decision, you try to win them over. And maybe you do. But what just happened psychologically? You entered their frame. You accepted that their doubt was legitimate enough to require a response. You made their approval the win condition. And now, every time you interact with them, they'll know they can pull you into defense mode. They'll know you need to be seen as competent, and they'll use that. Option 2. You pause, you hold eye contact, and you say something like, "I'm comfortable with my decision." Then you move on. No explanation, no justification, no defense. And here's what happens. They feel the discomfort you refuse to carry. They're the ones left holding the tension. They're the one who now has to decide whether to escalate or let it go. You didn't fight for your authority. You didn't give it away. And that refusal to play created more respect than any explanation ever could. This applies everywhere. A woman tests you. You don't need to pass her test. You don't need to pass her test. You don't take it. A friend challenges your boundaries. You don't need to explain why you said no. You hold the line. A stranger online disagrees with you. You don't need to correct them. You just let them be wrong. Because the moment you stop needing people to understand you, agree with you, or validate you, you become untouchable. And your ego hates that. Because your ego needs the conflict. It needs the chance to prove itself. And when you stop feeding it, it panics. Here's the second shift. You think being liked creates influence. It doesn't. Being valued does. And value is created through scarcity, not availability. Every time you're too available, too eager, too willing to help, you train people to take you for granted. You become useful, but useful is not powerful. Useful is replaceable. Jung talked about this differently. He said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation only happens when there's tension, when there's distance, when there's something at stake. If you're always there, always agreeable, always accommodating, there's no stakes, there's no tension, there's nothing to transform. You're just a resource, and resources get used. You see this with friendships. You're always the one who reaches out, always the one who makes plans, always the one who shows up. And at first it feels good. You feel needed, you feel valued. But slowly, you start to notice. They don't reach out to you. They don't make an effort. They don't prioritize you the way you prioritize them. And when you finally pull back, nothing changes. Because you were never valued. You were convenient. And convenience doesn't create loyalty. You see this with women. You're always available, always responsive, always trying to add value to her life. And she appreciates it. She really does. But she doesn't respect it, because respect is earned through boundaries, not generosity. The man who has time for everyone has value for no one. But the selective man, who's hard to reach and has priorities that come before her, creates tension. And tension creates attraction, not because she likes being ignored, but because scarcity signals value, and value creates respect. You see this at work. You're always willing to take on extra projects, always saying yes and always staying late, and your boss appreciates it. But when promotion time comes, you get passed over. Because you made yourself too available, you showed that you don't have boundaries. You showed that your time is infinitely accessible, and people don't promote the person who's always there. They encourage the person who's hard to replace. Here's the shift. Stop being available by default. Start being available strategically. Stop saying yes to everything. Start saying no to most things. Stop trying to be liked. Start being valued. And value is created by what you withhold, not by what you give. Third shift. You think explaining your boundaries makes them stronger. It doesn't. It makes them negotiable. The moment you explain why you won't do something, you open the door for someone to argue with your reasoning. You turn your boundary into a debate, and now you're defending your right to have limits, which means you just made your boundaries conditional. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And here's the unconscious pattern most people never see. You think explaining yourself is respectful. You think it's mature. You think it shows that you're reasonable. But what it really shows is that you need permission. You need the other person to agree that your boundary is valid. And that need for validation just gave them power over you. Someone asks you for a favor you don't want to do. You say, "I can't, I'm too busy this week." And they say, "It'll only take an hour." Now you're trapped. Because you gave them a reason and they just negotiated with your reason. If you just said, "I can't help with that," and stopped, there's nothing to negotiate. They can be upset, they can be confused, but your boundary stays intact because you didn't make it conditional on their understanding. This is where most people fail. They think kindness requires explanation. It doesn't. Kindness is in the delivery, not the justification. You can say no, calmly, warmly, and firmly, without explaining why. And the person who respects you will accept it. The person who doesn't will push, and that push tells you everything you need to know. They don't respect your boundary. They respect their need. And if you explain, you're just giving them ammunition to prioritize their need over yours. Here's the shift. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop defending your decisions. Just state them, hold them, and let other people deal with their own discomfort. Because every time you explain, you're training people that your boundaries are up for debate. And once they know that, you'll spend the rest of the relationship defending limits that should have never been questioned. Fourth shift. You think anger shows dominance. It doesn't. It shows that someone got under your skin. Anger is proof that you lost control, proof that someone else's words or actions dictated your emotional state. And the moment you react emotionally, you hand them the frame. You show them exactly what buttons to press next time. Jung called this shadow projection. You're not angry at them. You're angry at the part of yourself that feels threatened by them. And instead of facing that, you project it outward. You make them the problem. You make them the villain. And you react. But here's what really happened. They said something, and your ego registered it as a threat. And instead of sitting with that discomfort, instead of letting it pass, you defended. You attacked. You proved you were affected. And now they know you're controllable. Real power is not in reaction, it's in restraint. It's in the ability to hear something that would make most people explode and respond with cold clarity. Because the man who can stay calm while everyone around him is emotional owns the room, he's not trying to win the argument. He's operating from a different frame entirely. He's not bothered. He's observing. And that observation makes everyone else feel exposed. Someone insults you. You have two moves. Move one, you fire back, you defend, you escalate, and now you're in a fight. And even if you win, you still lose. Because you showed that their words mattered enough to pull you out of your frame. You showed that you're reactive. And reactive men are easy to control. Move two, you pause. You let the insult sit in the air. You look at them like they just revealed something about themselves, not you, and then you move on. No defense, no counterattack, just calm indifference. And that indifference does more damage than any insult you could have thrown back, because it shows you're not playing their game, you're not even in their league. Fifth shift, you think showing emotion makes you authentic. It doesn't. It makes you readable. And readable means controllable. Every time you wear your feelings on your face, every time you react immediately, every time you let people see what affects you, you give them a map of how to manage you, how to manipulate you, how to push you into decisions that benefit them. Jung understood this. He talked about the persona, the mask you wear in the world. And most people think the goal is to drop the mask, to be real, to be vulnerable. But Jung didn't say drop the mask. He said, know the difference between the mask and the self. Because the persona isn't fake, it's strategic. It's the part of you that interacts with a world full of people who don't have your best interests at heart. And if you walk around with no persona, with no filter, with no emotional control, you're not being authentic. You're being reckless. Someone says something that bothers you. If you react immediately, they know it bothered you, and now they have leverage. But if you pause, stay neutral, and let the moment pass without giving them feedback, they're left guessing. They don't know if you didn't care, or if you're just disciplined, and that uncertainty keeps you in control. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means choosing when and how you express it. It means understanding that your feelings are information for you, not content for everyone else. The man who controls his emotional display controls the frame. Everyone around him controls the man who doesn't. Sixth shift, seeking advice shows humility. It doesn't. It shows you're outsourcing your decision-making. Every time you ask someone what you should do, you give them authority over your life. You make them the expert and yourself the student. And once you do that, you can't unhear their opinion. It's in your head. It's influencing you. And now your decision isn't entirely yours, Jung said. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. And this is the trap. You think asking for input is wise. You think it's mature. But what you're really doing is avoiding the discomfort of trusting yourself. You're avoiding the responsibility of owning your decision. Because if you ask someone else and it goes wrong, you have someone to blame. But if you decide alone and it doesn't go good, it's all on you, and your ego can't handle that. Here's the shift. Stop asking, start deciding, stop crowdsourcing your life, start trusting your instincts, stop looking for validation, stop building conviction, and if you're wrong, own it. Learn from it, adjust, but don't give away your authority to people who don't live with the consequences of your choices. Seventh shift. Being transparent builds trust. It doesn't. It removes mystery, and mystery is what keeps people invested. The moment you explain everything, justify everything, and share everything, you become predictable, and predictable is boring. Predictable is controllable. Predictable is powerless. Jung talked about the unconscious as the source of life's energy, the unknown, the hidden, the mysterious. And when you remove all mystery from yourself, when you lay everything out, when you make yourself fully known, you remove the tension that keeps people curious. You remove the distance that creates respect. You become an open book. And open books get skimmed, not studied. This applies to relationships. The man who shares every thought, every feeling, every detail of his day becomes wallpaper. He's there. He's nice, but he's not interesting. The man who holds space, who stays calm, who reveals himself slowly, that man remains in her mind. Not because he's playing games, but because he understands that value is in what you withhold, not what you give away. This applies to work. The person who explains every decision, justifies every move, and who needs everyone to understand their process looks insecure. The person who moves quietly, who executes without announcing, who lets results speak, that person gets respect. Because they're not performing, they're operating. And operations don't require applause. Here's what ties all of this together. Your ego is terrified of being unseen. It's afraid of being misunderstood. It's scared of being misunderstood. And so it performs. It defends. It explains. It reacts. It needs. And every time you obey that need, you reinforce the fear underneath it. The fear that if you stop proving yourself, you'll be nothing. But Jung saw through this. He understood that the ego is not the self. The ego is a construct, a tool, a defense mechanism built in childhood to navigate a world that felt dangerous. And for a child it works, but you're not a child anymore. And the strategies that kept you safe as a kid are the same strategies, keeping you powerless as a man. Let me show you what happens if you ignore this. You keep reacting, you keep defending, you keep explaining, and slowly people stop taking you seriously, not because you're weak, but because you're predictable, you're manageable, you're controllable, and controllable men don't get respect. They get tolerated. They get used. They get kept around because they're helpful, not because they're valued. You become the guy people vent to but don't take advice from, the guy people like but don't prioritize, the guy people appreciate but don't respect. And you'll feel it. You'll feel the distance. You'll feel the lack of weight your words carry. You'll feel how people politely dismiss you. And you'll wonder whether you need to be more assertive, more confident, more dominant. So you try harder. You react faster. You defend louder. And it gets worse because you're still operating from the same frame. The frame that says your value is earned through performance. And that frame is the prison. But here's what happens when you apply this. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop needing people to see you a certain way, and something shifts. People start watching you differently. They start listening when you speak. They start respecting your boundaries without you having to defend them. They start seeking your approval instead of you seeking theirs. Not because you changed what you said, but because you changed what you refused to do. You stop defending yourself and people stop questioning you. You stop being available and people start valuing your time. You stop explaining and people stop negotiating with you. You stop reacting and people stop testing you. You stop seeking validation and people start giving it freely. Because you stopped playing the game your ego needed you to play, and when you stop playing, you stop losing. This is not about being cold. This is not about being distant. This is not about shutting people out. This is about understanding that your worth is not up for debate. It's not conditional. It's not something you prove. It's something you embody. And the moment you stop trying to prove it, people feel it. Jung spent his life trying to help people see this. He called it individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, instead of who you were trained to be. And the first step is seeing the ego for what it is, not your enemy, not your friend, just a tool that was useful once, but now it's running your life. And if you want power, if you wish to respect, if you wish to control, you have to take that power back. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, do this. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, don't. Every time you feel the urge to defend, stay silent. Every time you feel the urge to react, pause and watch what happens. Watch how people respond when you stop feeding their need to control you. Watch how much power you gain by simply refusing to give it away. If you got something from this, hit the like button. Please share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more. And if this hit you, write "I am the strategist" once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. And the moment you stop performing for approval, you become exactly that.